All right. Well, welcome everybody. It's our first ever interview with a successful accountant. So I've got Gavin Waring over here. He's actually originally a New Zealander. His sister was quite a well-known politician in New Zealand for a number of years, and but his name's Gavin Waring. And hey, so Gavin, welcome to the first ever interview. Nice to have you as our inaugural interviewee. So can you give us a bit of a rundown on who are you, what do you do, and who do you do it for? And before you do that, one of the reasons I chose, well, the reason I chose Gavin first is because Gavin's a bloody good implementer, and he's had a lot of success, or he's done particularly well around pricing and packaging, and it's an area that I kind of want to pick his brains on for you guys listening. So Gavin, give us a bit of a background. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for?
Okay, I'm CEO of the Your Business Angels Group in Australia. So Your Business Angels Group is a marketing arm that we have that used to specialise in pre-insolvency, and now we still market at that level, but we're really just pushing into building our accounting firm Fresh Numbers. And we have also created our own accounting platform. We're moving away from the standard packages because for lots of reasons they don't satisfy us. So we've built and designed those. So we're also probably a wholesaler in the marketplace as well now. But our real push, like what feeds us at the moment, is driving what I would describe as a very progressive accounting firm.
Okay.
You asked me what I do. I get up and make endless mistakes. Excellent. Every day, non-stop. So what I've learned to do is try and keep my mistakes small so they're not major and they don't hurt too much financially. But as you do things, and sometimes it's strategic and sometimes it's tactical and sometimes it's, real ballsy, as you do things, some of them work and they work spectacularly. So I spend a lot of my time making mistakes. I have a lot of time with my managers as they list things that I failed at in the last 6 months. And occasionally I stop and go, well, how much did the business go up in the last month, for example? Or so we had a good week 2 weeks ago. My sales manager was, and is also now a Victorian manager, was listing all the things that I appeared to be struggling with. And I said to her, well, what was our new sales last week? And we were way over $100,000. So I thought, well, that's failure for you.
Yeah, there you go. If that's failure, give me more of it. Actually, that's a really important point before we even get into this, because I think your mindset is different from a lot of people's, from what you just said there, that you have a mindset that it's okay to make mistakes, right? It's inherent in being in business, and you're okay with that in advance. And there's a thing in, I do a lot of sports psychology. So there's a thing in sports psychology which is really big at the moment called, everyone needs to have a growth mindset. So, it's not about winning or losing, although winning or losing is important. But what you can influence, you can't influence a win or a loss on any particular game. But what you can do is find ways to get better. And that's what you teach people to think like. Now, part of that, getting better. If you get better every single day, sooner or later, you're going to be very, very good. But part of that is accepting that by getting better, we have to grow, and to grow, we have to try things out. And to try things out, we have to accept that we're going to make mistakes. So, ironically, making mistakes is a precursor to being the best. And that's something you've intuitively just taken on and told us.
Yeah, and the other thing too, there was something that one of my father's apprentices said to him. I think when I was probably 11 or 12 years old, and I learned a lot from it. My dad had quite a number of butcher shops in the Waikato in New Zealand, and one of his things that he was most proud about was that he had trained 108 apprentices through to being full journeymen. And there was one guy who worked for him, so the language and the culture of a butcher shop in those days was pretty hard going. And he had this apprentice, and every time somebody go, who did this, and was yelling, the apprentice go, I did that, that was my mistake, and completely neutralize the whole thing. So, if it's a mistake I've made in trying to do something and a client says, oh, did this happen? I'll go, yeah, I screwed it up. we're fixing it by doing this, but being absolutely transparent, people find that new trust. Trust equals money. You know, it always does. In the marketplace, you know, we can spend, sometimes we put a radio ad out, you know, and watch 100 grand go past the door and go, well, that didn't work. But if you're listening and you're open to anything, and that's not just marketing people, but anything, you'll pick up stuff that's dramatic. I picked up something from my sister the other day when she got off a plane. And she talked about vulnerability, and she talked about a TED talk she heard, and I looked at it and went, that's my formula for my new radio ads. And we used the concept of vulnerability. In other words, people can be, if you're vulnerable, and there's that genuine initial sense of the meaning. But being vulnerable also means you open yourself up to new ideas. So we use that whole play to say you might want to be vulnerable to us. In other words, open yourself up, talk to us, see what we can do for you. That doubled our phone calls. Now, I wasn't talking to anyone in marketing. I'm not talking, you know, and you've got to try and find the metaphor in life too. So, you know, I come back to my staff here, and I go, I got this idea, and I go, where did you get that from? I go, I was reading the data about, you know, the chemical industry, and they go, what's that got to do with us? And I'm going, well, that's how they market. You know, try and imagine if we did that, you know, in our marketplace. So try, or you know, I look at a restaurant. I do things like I collect junk mail. I think junk mail is fascinating, and so what can I learn from this? Well, first thing I learn is junk mail works. That's really interesting, because then I go, it doesn't work. Why does IKEA put brochure, you know, a book around to every house in Melbourne and probably Australia? It costs them at least $3 a book. Why is Bunnings sending stuff through my letterbox non-stop? They advertise on TV like hell, and they've got a great website. And the big one is, well, why the hell do real estate agents spend a fortune on shoving stuff through your letterbox when they supposedly own the digital world for what they do? And you talk to a real estate agent, and they go, well, because it works. And you go, well, hang on, I'm just learning something here. It's got nothing to do with being an accountant. But why shouldn't I be using junk mail to promote an accounting business, which I'm going to experiment, but I'm not going to do it in my own turf, because I don't want to upset my own turf. So I'm going to, you know, probably the eastern suburbs of Sydney, I'm going to start basically having letterbox drops done in 2 or 3 suburbs non-stop, just to see if it works. So I'm going off Broadway, as it were. And if it screws up, it's cost me a few grand. If it works, hell, I've learned something. I've really learned something. I haven't like, I think the term is, I haven't been shitting in my own dinner bowl in Melbourne. So, you know, I've gone out to do it. Does that explain what I do all day long?
Yep. Look, I love it. That's why I love you so much. You're a bold innovator, and you're almost a mad scientist. You're running tests and experiments all the time to see what works and what doesn't. So let's move to the next question.
You didn't get to what I do it for, and this is really important.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we've talked about The Apprentice, and then we've talked about a guy who influenced me when I started this business. I went on a couple of retreats with radio stations, and he would present, you know, and you know, it sounded pretty cool, and give us data and that, and then he'd sit down and say, the most important thing is that you do everything for your client. Forget the money. You focus on the client, and if you focus on the client, money will come. All right? So I want to be successful. I want to retire with the biggest yacht somewhere that I'll never sail, or whatever it is. But I focus on my client. I do it for my client all the time. I'm not scared to charge my client. I'm not scared to go, I want X, and if you don't want me to pay that, I guess you're not my client. But I do it for my client, and then money comes.
Interesting. So you, and I know you charge well. So you charge well enough that you don't mind giving an outstanding service to your client and actually focusing on them. And I think that's a good distinction, that those who are going for, they think they have to do the cheapest price because someone else might undercut them. Then what sort of service can you give a client when you've won them by giving them a cheap price? You don't have any fat built in to actually do anything special for them.
Well, you talk about the experiments. One experiment I ran a few years ago is, as people came in, I told them I would be probably more than the last guy they were paying, and I do that every single time. I'm probably going to be more expensive than you're being paid. Now, I know that I'm often saying that to people where I'm going to be cheaper. Because see, the reason why I say I need to see your last financials, and I need to understand. So I'm obviously looking to see if they've got debit loan accounts. I just want to see what they've been paying their accountant, for God's sake. That's why but obviously I'm going to review the accounts. But I look, and then some people come in and go, mate, the problem, you're in trouble. Look how much you're paying. I'm only going to be 3 times that amount, but you won't have this problem again. Or if I see that I know I'm going to be at least half the price of some crazy price they've paid, then I'll tell them, I think maybe I might be more expensive than you paid last time. So, so when they get our quote and it's less, it's never tell people that you're going to be competitive. Yeah. But you may be competitive or you may not be competitive. I've found that you tell people you're going to cost more from the first breath. And then I say, look, if that doesn't suit you, we'll end this conversation. Do you want me to continue? And they always go, please continue.
Right. Brilliant. And the assumption that if you're saying we're not the cheapest, there's an assumption that you're better, that you must be good. Because if you're a more expensive end, you must be better. So
you've got to pick your market.
Yeah, that's right. This is gold. So thanks for this. I'm really enjoying this myself. All right. So you've done a lot of things. What wasn't working, or what have you found that hasn't worked? And what mistakes have you made, and what are those mistakes cost you?
Okay, what wasn't working? Okay, let's go to the mistakes I've made in relation to, say, my relationship with your organization. What I'd been doing for a while was thinking, I've done this for so long, I must know it all. Right. So if I was battling with something, I'd go, surely I can solve this problem. And I've always been in the past that guy who knocks on people's doors and go, can I ask you a few questions? And people go, but you're Gavin, you're from an old organization. I go, yeah, but I look at this old face, it must be I'm forgetting stuff. And so when I saw, and I don't, apart from a Leonard Cohen coffee cup, and then I got sold a Leonard Cohen t-shirt on Facebook, I'd never bought anything. And when this picture popped up of what you guys did, I went, what the hell? All I'm going to do is waste money and fail again, or maybe it works. So, and what I found in jumping in with you guys was that I actually went back to, not only followed what you were doing, I went back to my open-mindedness of reading huge amounts of stuff and learning from it. I've just read a 1,200-page book on the history of Churchill, and I've made all sorts of notes for my business. This character and the way he operated, and you realized he had, to implement what he needed to do, obviously to get through the Second World War, but when he became the Prime Minister for the second time, when he'd lost it after the Second World War, and the strategies, and I'm going, this is business 101, just fabulous. So you've got to keep an open mind. But what wasn't working was that we weren't getting those great big growths and leap forwards that I'd got kind of used to over about a 24-year period. And also too, there's a couple of things that we had to beat. And it wasn't not what wasn't working. It was like putting your head up and saying, there's two things. Number one, this is an industry that's having a race to the bottom. Right. So I'm going to be very opinionated here. Xero's causing that. An absolute race to the bottom. And even on Xero website, when it invites people to look up, Xero accountants, the whole theme of that is, I bet you can get somebody really cheap here. So everybody in the industry thinks, and we got cheaper, because we had to keep clients, but because I built my own system, I've saved a fortune, and being able to become profitable again. But I had to understand there's a race to the bottom, so you have to find new language, and the language is not, I do accounts, I do BAS, I do tax. That can't be any part of your conversation as an accountant. It's like, it's like if you went to, mechanics says something like, I blow up tires and put oil in your car. You go, That's not very exciting. What are you going to do to keep my car going and make me feel good about my car? So, I just found that, and to be truthful, as you know, Richard, and I've confessed to you, there's an awful lot on your program I'm yet to get to, because just the first bites have been so bloody enormous and had huge impacts. So what wasn't working was I'd stopped to kind of go out and talk to people, and I'd stopped being curious about how other businesses worked, and I'd become a bit insular, knowing that our industry has been under massive attack and we're being driven to the bottom.
Brilliant.
Oh,
I love
cost?
talking to you, Gavin, because you're such an open-minded guy. And you are not only, you're street smart. Like a lot of the best clients I get to work with, they are open-minded, but they're street smart as well. You give them a few ideas, and you don't see them again for a while, and then they come back, and you go, yeah, what happened? And a lot of people go, well, nothing. But you get one of these, I almost call them our superstar, and they're superstars before they met me, but when they get given a few things, they come back and it's like, look what I've done. It's almost like the guy who was given talents, what have you done with all your talents, that Bible story, and someone comes back and goes, I've got the same as what you gave me. And then the other son comes back and says, I've made all this. So I love my superstars. All right, so what did you do? We've done what didn't work, but what did you do? What did work? Give us some stories about some of the stuff you've done.
Okay, the first one was I put my prices up. So nice. if you look at your training, you say put the prices up in a market that's been driven to the bottom, and I'm sure that most of your clients are absolutely scared as hell of putting the prices up. The point is, if you go to somebody and say, would you change your accountant? No. Would you change your hairdresser? No. Would you change your restaurant? And they'll go, oh, sometimes, right? Then you say, okay, tell me about the restaurant you go to. What do you order? The answer is the same thing every time. Now, for all the data in the world, humans only overdo two things. They either do what they did last time, or they do what everyone else is doing. So if the bulk of your clients come to you because they just happen to come to you because you're their accountant, they're going to keep coming to you because you're their accountant. I mean, that's it. I mean, unless you've done something absolutely dreadful. And when we implemented our own system, we suddenly stopped client churn. So I think last year we lost 12 clients, 6 of them died. I mean, people die, you lose them. The other 6, I think, just either went out of business or didn't like us. But we're talking from quite a sizable pool. So I'm going to put my prices up 12.5%. Everyone in my company thought I was insane.
Right.
And I said, well, no, I've started this course with 2 guys who, don't have any vowels when they talk, but let's follow this program properly. So I said 12.5%, and somebody said, why 12.5? And I'm going, I've got absolutely no idea, but it just sounded right. If you haven't put your prices up for 5 years, if you've been dropping them a bit because of market 12.5% kind of sounds fair. 9, it's like we're scraping for money. 15, it's a bit gritty. 10, no, it's too unplanned. 12.5, I thought about it, it sounds fair. So we put our prices up 12.5%. And everybody in the company said, well, who are you going to sack as we lose clients? I'm going, look, it either works or it doesn't work, but I think it's going to work, because this is one of those kind of not quite bet the business risks, but it's a big risk. But I felt comfortable because we'd stabilized. I'd had a lot of compliments. I said, but there's one client in Sydney, I know they'll be the first people on the phone bitching. I guarantee they're the first people to complain. So wrong was I. They actually sent an email saying that's fair enough. We've had fantastic service and we don't mind paying extra. They're the only ones who did that. Right. I had 3 clients complain about the price and say they don't want to pay it. One of them I was happy to lose. It was like, absolutely, he was a nightmare. I could give him to my biggest enemy. And the other 2, I actually reviewed what they were paying, and I thought, oh, we're actually doing pretty well here. Right. Everyone else across the board, price rise went in, not a problem. There we were, and it's like that's one of the first things you do is your steel balls, put your price up, and most people go, I can't do that. And they're going, if they've been your client for 5 years, are they going to go anywhere else? Number one, if they've been your client for 5 years, here, this is what accountants forget too. accountants don't think this, but your client thinks this. The client thinks, he's been my accountant for 5 years. He knows my dirty secrets. If I go somewhere else, he might spill the beans. Now, that is an interesting thing that crossed my mind too when we put the prices up. How many, because we've dealt with people who have struggled, and I run a really tight ship here. We're absolutely ethical. I will not claim anything that cannot be proved. We're really hard-assed on our clients about doing the right thing. But, people think that, oh, for 12.5%, yeah, I guess they're the right. And so, what that worked fantastically.
Mm-hmm. How many clients are we talking about?
I don't know. You have to go downstairs and ask them. I just get I get problems, or I get problems, or I get people who have done, accountants have done really well, so I can give them accolades, because people have come back from the brink and saved money and bought a house or turned their lives around or done amazing things. We've done that. So
well, that doesn't matter. So we're talking a reasonable. We're talking a reasonable.
Yeah. I'm trying to guess here, but through the year, about 1,000.
Okay, that's quite a few. That's a lot. Wow, that's a lot to get. Okay, yeah.
But it did impact. So then the next thing, and I'm just trying to go through the sorts of stuff you is bundling. Now, the thing about bundling is that you have to understand that is not fixed price. Fixed price at the start of the century was a really good idea. Right, fixed price accountants charged by the hour. You phone them up, they'll hammer you. For every 6 minutes, you get bills that you don't even understand. When they post you out your ASIC and you pay that, they'll charge you $300 because it's your office that it's addressed to. All that cribbing started to unwind at the start of the century. So everyone went to fixed prices, and hello, Xero really push this, that people should all have fixed prices. So Xero could create that auction in the marketplace. Who's the cheapest Xero client? Before we got to our product, we might have someone who would take us God knows how many hours every week to clean up this filthy mess they made and their accounting package. Then we'd try and get reports to them, and then they'd go back and make the mess, and we'd start the whole cycle again. And they'd say, oh, that Xero accountant over there, so it was a Xero accountant over there, is much cheaper than you.
Right.
So you've got to actually get away from anything or any conversation that relates to fixed prices and your bloody online package, and it doesn't matter which of them are, they're all the same bloody product, for God's sake. So you actually then have to find something else. And so listening to your idea of bundling, sort of like, I think I'm your bundling king now, because I understand that what you do is you box up your accounts, BAS, profit and loss, of financials and tax returns.
Yeah.
And also too, because we've got this really cool thing that comes off our accounting package called Cruncher. And I haven't got a client who reads their P&L or balance sheets anymore. They read our Cruncher reports that are all cash flow related. That goes in a little box over there, and that's what I'm going to get to do what is traditionally accounting bookkeeping. Right, so that's in a box to the left, and that's what we do, and that fee looks kind of all right and probably can go in the market and be competitive. But you, sir, by nature, are not very good with tax, are you? I mean, you've got a 10-year history we've just cleaned up. So here is Tax Shield, and we've got a number of ways to express how Tax Shield works, so the client can tune his cash flow into paying taxes, and not when the ATO wants it at the quarter or the annual. We actually have a different tuning on that. And then we have another thing called objectives, right? Which is about, surely you want to put some super away, you're going to grow old, die, and live off the pension the way you're going. And would you like to go and see how miserable life on the street? That's the, not the life on the street box. We call it something else, and it's got a nice name.
Yeah. So just so people understand, because you're talking about packaging up 3 different package offers. Instead of just going through a menu, which is what a lot of accountants will do, they'll pull out a menu and say, do you want this, do you want that, do you want that? What you're doing is bundling out, basically almost like going to McDonald's and we've got the Happy Meal. You can buy the Happy Meal, or you can buy the, I don't know, the burger big stack, or you can buy the Hunger Buster pack, which includes the milkshake, right? It includes a thing. So instead of, you know, what do you need, getting one quote by going through the menu.
But you've just described a great metaphor there for bundling up accounting, right? So you say the Happy Meal, that's your give your kids some food and keep them quiet while you're driving and keep them off your back deal. And you go to the other extreme, which is you're a fat bastard. This is what you want to buy and eat because you're a greedy pig, right? Doesn't matter. Those are the real names of what you've got. So when we've got our little box that says what all you know, the accounts and the profit and loss and the balance sheet and BAS and tax returns, that's a box to say, well, we're going to do it, so does everybody. Every other box, you've got to figure out what is your pretend name for that box, but then what is the name you're going to give them? Because if you come up with a pretend name box like this keeps you out of the crap from the ATO forever box, you don't title it that, so you call it Tax Shield, you know. Then you have another box which is, and because we strongly believe in our own system, we now put audit insurance included. And that audit insurance is a real bugbear and has always been a bugbear for anyone in business. We've never sold auditor insurance, but now I just think, well, if we've never sold it because we back our work, why not put it in a box and go audit insurance included? Now, if the accounts are kept up to date all the time, right, and you can prove the cash flow off the bank statements, then surely you've got another little box called finance ready. So, mate, every time you want a new ute, we'll be able to bang those figures out, and you can finance your ute already.
Right. So you're bundling up. So this is key. You're bundling up solutions. So, you know, you're a fat bastard. You know, I'm not calling it that, but you're a fat bastard. You're an ambitious bastard, and you're something else. You want to get, you know, it could be you want to get your business ready for sale. Whatever outcomes that you want to deliver, and these are always outcomes above and beyond just doing basic bookkeeping. And
so if you go, I know you guys always push people to go for the big client, right? I don't. I want the clients everyone hates, because I've got a solution that actually works for them. So you guys spend a lot of your time talking about how to get a bigger, better client. So your boxes for those bigger, better clients would, instead of being, you know, keeping you out of trouble with the ATO, you'd put greedy bastard, really greedy, ambitious bastard box, you know, hungry for anything box, you know. So a different accountant would have different boxes. So you actually, you talk to, and this is the thing you guys have been hammering, and particularly Darren, you talk to the problem. The problem is you're a greedy bastard. This is going to help you get what you want. Or, you know, you're hopeless with the ATO. This will stop you ever being in trouble with them again and paying any of those fees that you've been paid.
Let's stay out of jail.
Yeah, but the bundling has to have an emotional content that talks to the problem. And by the way, you happen to put what you're going to do, but when you put what you're going to have to do in that box, you give them the sizzle and not the steak. So I found with bundling is about knowing that we do have a product. I'm not going to show you inside the hat where the rabbits just come out of, but we will pull rabbits out of the hat for you. You know us, that, and you've kicked into touch that we do BAS, we do tax returns,
like everybody else.
So the whole thing too is about and I have got my staff so involved in this stuff now. She's hilarious. I got Beck downstairs. Now, I decided that I wanted to stop employing people who have training in an industry. I wanted to have different people. So I went and got, I've employed someone who used to be a floor manager for a 100-seat cafe. Amazing, because they can juggle, keep so much in the air. And she's learned, you know, the important things you say to clients about, you know, improving their life and making a difference, and particularly at the level I work at, which those people who have always struggled all their goddamn lives. And I was in the room where, I was in the room with a client one day where we're just, you know, wrapping his head a bit around how to, you know, move forward and Beck's been on his back non-stop. And so he passed a comment to her. He said, you know what? It's like being married to you, you know. And I thought, well, that's a compliment, because he feels that we're just nagging him to get the right things done.
Right.
So in those boxes, they're very different from your clients who are going to get, you know, high performance, high paying clients.
Yes.
Do you know, so we've done what, 100, 200,000 bank statements of tradies, even more in our company, I can tell you this. And so when we're chasing our clients about what's in the boxes, the average tradie in Australia spends a house deposit every 5 years on takeaway.
The average tradie every 5 years spends, wow.
A house deposit on takeaways. So when I get, I'm just trying to think of his name. What's his name? George. George, he's a client, and he has a little bit of engineering work and work with trucks. Yeah, and he's brilliant. He's Australia's best at what he does with truck bodies. And so we've talked him through two things that are important to him, right, to make money, and it's no big plan and it's no language that's difficult. Number one, we've taken about a year to talk him through 25% price rise.
Yep.
And he's already knowing that I'm going to nag him for 5% more and maybe 7% more, because the large truck companies only send work to him because they want him to make them look good.
Yep.
But the other thing we've talked George through is he doesn't buy lotto tickets anymore.
Right.
And he takes his own lunch. And those two things is giving George an extra $33,000 a year after tax.
Unbelievable.
So what's in our box is different to somebody who's a high net value.
Yeah.
You know, you can't look at my boxes and go, oh, Gavin's got a formula, I'll call him up and ask him what he's bundling. You've got to look at your market and what you're in, and then start bundling it up. So from when I met you guys, I've kind of like, you know, I've become obsessed about how bundling should work. I could probably write the bundling for other accounting firms, but it wouldn't look like what I do for myself.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
And probably the last thing, because I'm only just starting to touch on it now, is referrals and finding the right referrer. And I know you've got your dirty 30. Well, I've got my outrageous one at the moment, who is going to put me in contact with 150 dentists.
Right. Nice.
We've got one now. And look, you know, dentists think that accountants should charge a lot. Hell, I cannot disappoint.
Exactly. You'd be letting them down. You'd be letting them down. So in terms of impact, you know, doing some of these things, the referrals, the pricing and packaging, what sort of impact stories can you tell us? I mean, because I want people excited, because this stuff does work unbelievably well. But what sort of things have you experienced?
More money.
Right.
Higher income. Firstly, higher income, which means that the client sees the bundle. Each bundle has a different price, but I will not accept anybody cherry picking.
Right. Okay.
So you have to take the lot, but I've broken it down. And the other thing that I've experienced, so obviously our turnover goes up, but the other experience I've found is because of the bundling and because you've kind of identified all the things that really touch on the client, clients are far more open to us. Clients call us for help, you know, long before they're going down the gurgler. People, because they've kind of seen this bundling and seen all these things we do, they'll bring things to us. So before they make a real tragic mistake, and such as a small subcontractor taking a large job on a union site and they're not used to the work or the culture or the unions, they walk in and ask about us before they make that disaster. As opposed to, you know, people who have grown up in that world of large buildings, unions, dealing with it. It's tough going. They can do it. So we get people. So the other thing I've experienced is clients actually call us a lot more, which means a lot more work, but it means it's engagement all the time. Just they ask, some of them ask the funniest things, but it's great because they want to know, and because of the cruncher too, they always, it's like spot where we went wrong in a transaction. You know, get P&L and balance sheet, you can't see what your accounts did in transactions. Our cruncher shows every transaction. People walk in the door, goes, that's a real claim, and I'll go, it's not. That proprietary limit is a real claim, and I'll go, that proprietary limit is a Cranbourne pub. It's not a claim, you know.
No.
It's sort of, and it's also the other thing about bundling is because you've identified with your market and you've shared an emotion with them because you understand that they either want to get through life without being hounded by the ATO, or they want to be greedy rich bastards. You've at least identified who they are, and they have an emotional attachment with you.
But you've become outcome focused rather than input focused. So I guess the traditional one is we'll do this and this and this and this, which are all inputs. They're kind of like, if you're looking at, it's not how you'd advertise a cake in the shop, is it? You wouldn't say we've got flour, sugar, salt, eggs. You advertise how delicious it is, and that's what you've converted a whole lot of inputs and ingredients into that's the literal ingredient, but that's not how you sell something. You sell something about how delicious it's going to taste and how rich it is and how seeing people and you put them into bundles which are more meaningful bundles for people because you're really explaining how that bundle changes someone's life.
Well, the thing is that they see the bundles, and quite frankly, half the time we're not giving them what's in the bundle, but because of the bundles, they think, oh, well, what I'm about to ask my accountant must have been in the bundle somewhere. They walk in, ask the question. They're not getting hit by any more fees. The question might be relating to, we're finally going to buy another property, and we haven't got in our bundle a fee for analysing how they should do that and how they should finance that and what's the effect on their tax. We haven't done that. We haven't put that in the bundle, but because we've bundled so much, they're actually knowing and being comfortable about coming and asking, mate, need new ute. Do I go to the financier at the car rooms, or how do I go find something else? And then we'll give them a document that says the high cost of low interest rates, when you buy a car. So the bundling actually also gives them permission to bring you other products that you're not going to charge them for, but as part of the value.
Yeah. So what percentage of people go for the higher value bundles? Well, what's the spread? Because presumably you've got a lower.
Don't do that at all. Don't do that at all. Someone comes in, that's their bundle. They either want to buy it or they don't.
Okay.
No, because in general, we're trying to say our market is people who are small and struggling or small. So our bundle kind of fits everybody, and people come in. We do have a change, and they're only changes when we know there's a lot of extra work, with payroll or something like that. So we don't actually give people bundle choices because we'd get confused.
Okay.
See, because they're sitting there looking at one bundle with all these things we do, and if they were to analyse what they might want from you over a life, let's say a 5-year relationship or more, it's not going to work. So the bundle, while it's got different things that emotionally attach to the client and solve the problems we believe that are going to need to be solved as we go forward, and are part of our services that are, additional to, so making sure that we've got a good way of them paying tax every week instead of every quarter, or all the other things that we do, we've just connected with them with one bundle. And that bundle gives them permission to walk in our door and ask for anything, as opposed to an all-you-can-eat. All-you-can-eat restaurants are out of fashion now, and I'm sure all-you-can-eat quotes are out of fashion now. But the bundle is kind of a menu of, but you can order anything you like. So those super exclusive hotels that have restaurants that are part of the package that you go in and you eat off the menu anything you want. No one brings you a bill because you've paid so much anyway.
Right, like the cruise ships sometimes.
Absolutely. So I didn't want to go there because I hate cruise ships. But I'm not a cruise ship person. But yeah, that's it. So when you've got people who are trying to understand what you do in bundling, and I hope you can give this to some value. It's their imagination that creates the bundle. It's them knowledge of their accountants that create the bundle. If you're in the countryside, part of your bundle would be completely understanding, what farmers can claim and little schemes you've got that might relate to all sorts of things. If you're chasing new businesses, I don't know, people who are building all sorts of groovy IT stuff. Part of your bundling would be, your ability to help them find funds or, chase government money. I don't know the stuff I don't know, but it might be in somebody else's bundle. It's part of that emotional attachment. Someone goes, I'm starting a new IT business. I might need funding. This guy's got a box that says they'll try and do this to help you get funding and all that sort of thing. And so the bundling is like almost a science in itself. So you guys put me onto that road, and it's just continuing.
That's brilliant. If you could only offer one piece, well, you've given a lot of advice, but what's your one thing, a piece of advice from your trial and error and all the mistakes you've made, successes you've had, but you'd offer one piece of advice to, say, an accountant who's ambitious to grow, but maybe stunted or struggling, what would it be?
Don't be scared to risk.
Nice.
Don't be scared to take a risk. If you're looking at, and you guys do, or Darren does a lot of the training for Facebook. Google AdWords has burnt me more money than it ever brought me clients by a ratio of 65,000 billion trillion to 1. Google might work for somebody. Don't be scared to look at your market. If your market has a whole lot of small businesses around you, make a brochure and, do some shoe leather. Don't be scared to walk into a cafe and when they're finished going, can I speak to the owner? Do you need an accountant? Don't be scared to embarrass yourself sometimes. Have a go, take a risk, financially and emotionally.
Brilliant.
I'd say that's it. And do research, but also trust your instincts. And life is what it is. It's a hell of a journey. So, assume you're going to fall over in the next week, but also assume you're going to stand up and run a bit too. So that's kind of advice. It's not really about the key secrets to run a business. I'd have a laugh at yourself.
Brilliant. Hey, thanks, Gavin. Really appreciate it.
Okay. Cheers, mate.